I came home from my double shift at the clinic with the kind of exhaustion that settles deep into your bones. The kind that no amount of coffee, no amount of sleep, no amount of pretending can fully erase. My shoulders ached from standing for 14 hours straight. My jaw was stiff from clenching in stress. My fingers still carried the faint smell of antiseptic, even after washing my hands 3 times before leaving work. But none of that mattered. Not right now. All I wanted was silence. Just silence and stillness. I wanted to drop my bag on the couch, slip off my shoes and let myself fall into a warm shower. I wanted to close my eyes and forget the world for a few hours before doing it all again the next day. But the moment my key turned in the door, something in the air shifted, something too subtle for anyone else to notice, but strong enough for me. My apartment didn't feel like my apartment. The air wasn't heavy from being untouched. It wasn't still the way it was every night when I came home. It felt moved, disturbed. Someone had been there. The living room lights were on. But I always turned all the lights off before I left, always. I stepped inside slowly, my bag strap sliding from my shoulder to my elbow. My breath came out in a quiet puff when my eyes finally scanned the room. The coffee table wasn't where I left it. The vase on the shelf was angled differently, as though someone had picked it up and placed it down carelessly. My framed photo was no longer upright. It leaned awkwardly, almost as if someone held it in their hands for too long before putting it back. My stomach tightened immediately, the exhaustion in my bones suddenly replaced with a sharp, focused tension. Someone had been here. Recently. Comfortably. I heard footsteps, slow, confident footsteps, from inside the kitchen. Not rushed. Not accidental. Someone comfortable enough to walk around freely. I took a few steps, my pulse beating heavily but steadily. I turned into the kitchen doorway, and there she stood. Glorious. My mother-in-law. Her back was turned toward me as she stirred something on my stove with a wooden spoon. Her shoulders were relaxed, her posture straight, her humming soft and self-satisfied. She wore her silk scarf and floral house sweater, the one she usually wore in her own home. But here she was, dressed like this, standing in my kitchen as though she lived here. A slow breath slipped out of me. She didn't hear me enter. Gloria turned eventually, and when her eyes met mine, her lips stretched into a tight, pleased smile. Oh, she said casually, as though this were the most natural thing in the world. You're home, good, I've been waiting. Waiting. In my locked apartment. With no invitation. With no explanation. My fingers curled around the strap of my bag. A coldness wrapped around my chest, not anger, not yet, but something dangerously close to it. How did you get inside? I asked, my voice low, steady. Gloria raised one eyebrow with mock innocence. I used the key Daniel gave me, she said, as if the answer was obvious. He said I should make myself comfortable, so I did. My heart stopped for a moment. Daniel gave her a key. Without telling me. To my apartment. The apartment I bought 5 years before we even dated. The apartment I saved for, suffered for, sacrificed for. The apartment that belonged solely to me. Gloria walked past me as if I was nothing more than another piece of furniture in the way. It's cozy, she said, glancing around with an air of superiority, but too small for the two of you. You'll need more space soon. I frowned, confusion slipping across my face. More space, I repeated quietly. For what? She turned fully, her chin raised, a glint of condescension in her eyes. For the next step, she said simply. My brows knitted closer. Next step, I asked again. Yes, she replied. Daniel and I talked about it. She folded her arms confidently. This apartment will go to me. You two will move in with us until we find something more suitable. The room felt suddenly smaller, the walls closer, the air tighter. You want this apartment? I asked slowly, making sure I understood. It's not so much what I want, she corrected, waving her hand dismissively. It's what makes sense. I'm older, I deserve comfort, and Daniel agrees his responsibility is toward his mother. My jaw clenched involuntarily. His responsibility. And what about me? His wife. Gloria leaned against my counter, with authority she didn't deserve. "You'll move in with us temporarily," she continued. "We'll convert the living room into a usable space for you." My throat pulsed with restrained disbelief. "Convert the living room," she said, as if I were some child staying in a spare corner. I placed my bag gently on the counter, letting the weight slide off my shoulder. "You discussed this with Daniel," I said quietly. "Of course," she laughed lightly. "He understands how things should work. He's a good son." A very faint ringing filled my ears, not shock, not fear, but awareness. Pure, cold awareness. She had planned everything. And Daniel had agreed. Behind my back. Gloria stepped toward me, lowering her voice as though sharing a secret. "You've been very lucky," she said, her smile sharp as a blade hidden in silk. "Lucky to marry my son, lucky to have a place like this, lucky I'm patient, I could have acted sooner." I stared at her silently, my eyes steady. She didn't like that. She wanted a reaction, fear, sadness, panic, anything but calm. "You should be grateful," she said finally. "Not everyone gets a mother-in-law willing to help them. I'll take this apartment off your hands. You two can figure out something more fitting." Her tone switched again, this time laced with threat even though she coated it in sweetness. "You don't want to make this difficult, do you?" I studied her face. The arrogance, the entitlement, the assumption that I would simply fold because she said so. I looked around my kitchen, the kitchen I painted with my own hands, the counters I bought, the stove I installed. Then I looked back at her. "Where is Daniel?" I asked softly. "He'll be here soon," she replied. "We're signing papers tonight." I blinked. "Papers?" "Oh yes," she nodded, adjusting her scarf. "I told him to bring them straight from the lawyer. There's quite a bit to prepare when transferring property." "Property. Transfer. Lawyer." She said each word with a confidence that made my blood turn cold. She walked back to the pot on the stove, humming again. As though the conversation was finished. As though she had already won. I watched her quietly. She had no idea who she was dealing with. She had no idea what silence meant for me. She had no idea what kind of woman I truly was when pushed far enough. This woman had entered the wrong home and declared a war she wasn't prepared for. Because in that moment, as she stirred her pot like she was cooking her victory, I made a promise to myself, a promise rooted not in fear but in precision. Whatever plan she thought she had, I would bury it. Piece by piece. Quietly. Effortlessly. And neither she nor my husband would ever see it coming. Daniel walked through the door 20 minutes later, holding a stack of papers in his hand, smiling nervously like a child caught sneaking candy, and that was the moment my story truly began. Daniel came in like he always did, half smiling, breath a little rushed as if he'd been walking fast. His tie was loose, his hair slightly messy from the wind, but what caught my eye wasn't his face or his clothes. It was the stack of papers in his hand. He froze for a split second when he saw me in the kitchen doorway with his mother behind me. That tiny tremor in his expression told me everything I needed to know. He hadn't expected me to be home this early. He hadn't expected me to be standing there. He hadn't expected to get caught in the middle of whatever he and Gloria had planned. "Hey," he said, forcing casual into his voice. "You're home." "I live here," I answered quietly. His eyes flicked toward his mother for support. She stepped in before he could say anything else, wiping her hands again as if she'd done something noble by cooking in my kitchen. "Daniel put the papers on the table," Gloria said. "We're all here now, perfect timing." "All." As if she belonged in that sentence. Daniel swallowed, nodded quickly, and set the documents on the dining table. I didn't move, I just watched. "Rough day?" he asked me, clearly desperate to change the subject. "Long," I replied, "and it's not over." Gloria clapped her hands, softly like this was some family event. "Well, let's make it productive then," she said. Sit, we have important things to discuss." My body wanted to collapse from fatigue, but my mind was sharper than it had been all day. I walked slowly toward the table and pulled out a chair, sitting down across from Daniel. He sat opposite me, Gloria at the end, like she was presiding over a meeting. The papers were in a neat stack, clipped together, thick and heavy. There was a pen lying on top of them, placed there deliberately. "Why don't you start?" Gloria said to Daniel. "It'll sound better coming from you." He cleared his throat and looked at me. For a moment I saw the man I married, the one who used to surprise me with coffee, who used to text me in the middle of the day just to say he loved me. For a moment I saw hesitation in his eyes. Then it vanished. "Look," he began, folding his hands together, "we've been talking about the future, about making smarter decisions, about doing what's best for the family." "The family," I repeated softly. "Which one?" He flinched. "Our family," he said. "You, me, Mom." I let him speak. Sometimes silence is more powerful than interruption. He took a breath. "We agreed that it doesn't make sense for this apartment to be just in your name anymore." There it was. The just, like my name on the deed, was some kind of insult. "We're married now," he went on. "We should formalize things, think long-term, protect everyone." I glanced down at the papers, then back at him. "How does giving your mother my apartment protect everyone?" I asked. Gloria's lips tightened, just for a second. "No one is giving anything," she said quickly. "You'll still live here, for now, but it needs to be secured under proper authority. I'm older. I've managed property before. It's only logical it goes under my guardianship." Guardianship. That word sat heavy between us. "So you want my apartment," I said calmly, "under your name, for my protection." Gloria didn't even flinch at the sarcasm. "For stability," she corrected. "If something happens, if there's a crisis, if bills need to be managed." "I manage my bills," I interrupted. My voice was still quiet, but it sliced through hers. She raised an eyebrow. "You work too much," she replied. "You're exhausted. You shouldn't have to think about this. Daniel and I will take care of everything." Daniel nodded, trying to jump in. "It's not like that," he said. "We're just—" "Show me," I cut in, my eyes never leaving his. "Hand me the papers." He hesitated, then slid the stack toward me. The pen rolled slightly and stopped near my wrist. I didn't pick up the pen. I picked up the papers. The legal firm's logo was at the top. The first page was a dense paragraph of printed text in formal language. I read silently, my eyes moving slowly but steadily. Gloria shifted in her seat, impatience flickering over her face. "It's just standard legal jargon," she said. "Nothing to worry about." I kept reading. The words irrevocable, transfer of ownership, and primary beneficiary appeared. The language wasn't subtle, it wasn't neutral, it was explicit. This wasn't about stability. This wasn't about guardianship. This was about transfer. Halfway through the second page, I found the part that mattered most. Full transfer of legal title and beneficial interest of the property located at my address, my apartment, my name as current owner, her name as the recipient, Gloria Hayes. I felt a calm spread through me, a strange, cold calm. I had felt it only a few times in my life, the kind of calm that came right before I made a decision I couldn't be talked out of. "So," I said softly, still reading, "this document removes my name and gives everything to you." Gloria leaned forward with a soothing smile. "On paper, yes," she said, as if that somehow made it better. "But you'll still live here, we're family, you'll have a place with us always, it's just structured correctly now." "Structured," I repeated. Daniel rubbed his temples. "It's not as harsh as it sounds," he said quickly. "We talked about this. You bought this place before we got married, yes, but we've built a life here. Mom just wants to make sure it stays in the family." I looked up slowly. "In which part of this document," I asked, "do you see my name after yours?" He didn't answer. I set the papers down and folded my hands over them. "How long," I asked quietly, "have you two been planning this?" Daniel opened his mouth, closed it, then looked at his mother again. "Don't turn this into something dramatic," Gloria said sharply. "We're trying to be practical. You know how unstable the world is. If anything happens to you—" "If anything happens to me," I interrupted, "this apartment goes to whoever I decide it goes to. That's what my will is for, not your paperwork." Her eyes hardened. You're being ungrateful, she said. After everything my son has done for you, after everything I've tolerated. What has he done for me? I asked, still in that same soft tone. Daniel's shoulders stiffened. Alzi. No, I cut in. Tell me, what has he done for me that entitles you to my home? The room went quiet. He tried anyway. We're a couple, he said. Marriage means sharing. It doesn't look right that everything is in your name. You make more money, you own the place, you pay most of the bills. And you play video games until 1 a.m. most nights, I said, not cruelly, just factually. That doesn't make you a co-owner. Color crept into his cheeks. So that's how you see me, he asked bitterly. A burden. I see you as someone, I replied, who agreed to give his mother a key to my apartment without asking me, and then brought home papers to sign my property over to her without talking to me first. That's what I see. His jaw clenched, his eyes flashed with wounded pride. You always talk like it's just yours, he snapped. Your apartment, your money, your decisions, I live here too. Gloria jumped in immediately, sensing the crack and trying to push it wider. A man needs respect in his own home, she said. You can't keep treating him like a guest. I smiled faintly. He becomes more than a guest, I said, when he stops acting like one. Gloria's patience ran thin, the honey in her voice faded and the steel underneath came through. This resistance is unnecessary, she said. Sign the papers, it's a formality. We've already moved things around in preparation. The memory of the shifted furniture, the tilted frame, the out-of-place vase flashed in my mind. You already started reorganizing my apartment, I said slowly, before I signed anything. She shrugged. Sometimes you have to take initiative, she said. If we waited for you, nothing would move forward. I set the stack of documents neatly in front of me and slid them back toward the center of the table. I'm not signing anything tonight, I said. Daniel stared at me. What do you mean you're not signing? Gloria demanded. We arranged this with the lawyer, there's a timeline. Then you can call the lawyer, I replied, my tone flat and controlled, and tell them the owner of the property will be taking her time. Daniel's voice rose, his panic beginning to leak through. Why are you making this so hard? He asked. It's just paperwork. Then you sign it, I said, if it's just paperwork. He went silent. Gloria exhaled sharply. Enough, she said. You're tired, you've been working all day, you're emotional, this is not the time to play stubborn. Sign it and we can all eat like a family. My lips curved just barely. I am tired, I admitted, but I'm not confused, that's the difference. I stood up slowly, my chair sliding back with a soft scrape. I'm going to shower, I said. When I come back, I want these papers off my table. Gloria stood as well, her chin lifting. You think you can just ignore this, she said. You think you can just delay and it will go away. I think, I replied, looking directly into her eyes, that I don't sign contracts someone else prepared for me without reading them properly, verifying them, and deciding if they benefit me. That's what I think. Daniel pushed his chair back, frustration radiating off him. You don't trust me, he said. I paused. I used to, I answered, before I found out you were making decisions about my life and my home with someone else. I turned away and walked toward the hallway. I didn't slam doors, I didn't shout, I didn't throw anything. I simply left the room. In the bathroom, I locked the door and let myself breathe. Not cry, not break, breathe. Their voices filtered through the wall, muffled but tense. She's being difficult, Gloria hissed. She's always like this about the apartment, Daniel muttered. She holds it over my head. My apartment, my name, my money. I'm sick of it. Then take that power away, Gloria said. You're her husband, you have rights. I closed my eyes, letting the water run for a moment just for the sound. Not yet, I thought. I won't cry yet. Not for this. 10 minutes later, when I stepped back out, my face was dry, my expression composed. The living room lights were dimmer. Gloria's coat was over her arm. The pot on the stove was off. The papers were still on the table. Gloria walked toward the door. We'll continue this, she said. You can delay, but you can't avoid your responsibilities forever. I didn't reply. She left without saying good night. Daniel lingered in the doorway to the kitchen, his hands shoved in his pockets. "You embarrassed me," he said quietly. "I didn't say anything in front of anyone," I replied. "Your mother embarrassed herself." "You could have just signed," he snapped. "It's not like we're throwing you out." "But you are," I said softly. "You just want me to smile while you do it." He looked away, jaw tight. "I'm going to bed," he muttered. "Good," I said. "You need sleep for all the decisions you're making." He disappeared down the hallway. When the bedroom door clicked shut, I walked back to the table. The documents sat innocently where I'd left them. I didn't throw them away. I didn't tear them. I didn't burn them. Instead, I laid them flat, smoothed the pages, picked up my phone and quietly took pictures of every single sheet. Front and back, every clause, every signature line, every detail. Then I slid the papers back into the folder and placed them exactly where they were before. Let them think I was just being stubborn. Let them think I was going to cave after a few days of pressure. Let them think they had time. Tomorrow, on my lunch break, I would be the one visiting a lawyer. Not theirs. Mine. Because if they wanted to play with documents and laws and signatures, they had chosen the wrong opponent. I turned off the living room lights, leaving the apartment in darkness. For a moment I stood in the middle of my home, listening to the silence, memorizing the way it felt. I made another promise to myself then. Whatever happened next, this apartment would not become another story of a woman who lost everything because she loved the wrong man. Not this time. Not me. I didn't sleep that night. I lay beside Daniel with my eyes open, staring at the faint cracks in the ceiling, listening to the soft, steady sound of his breathing. He slept like a man who believed everything would go his way. He slept like someone protected, cared for, shielded by a mother who had raised him to expect the world to adjust for him. I watched him silently, and in that darkness, something inside me clicked into place. This wasn't just betrayal. This wasn't just manipulation. This wasn't just pressure. This was a plan, not impulsive, not emotional, not accidental. His mother had come into my home with confidence, because this was step 1 for her. It was step 6, step 7, step 8. I rolled onto my side, facing away from him, and closed my eyes, not to sleep but to think, to strategize, to turn the pieces of the last few months over in my mind. His sudden emphasis on family responsibilities, his mother visiting more frequently, the way he suggested we merge finances, the way she evaluated my apartment like a buyer at an open house, the hints about me working too much, being too tired to manage things, the shifting comments about how property should stay with the older generation. It wasn't new. It was a build-up. A long one. They had been planning this for months, preparing the ground, testing my reactions, testing how much resistance they could push past. They thought they knew me. They thought I'd bend if they pushed just right. They thought fatigue made me weak. They didn't know fatigue made me sharper. By morning, I had a plan. Daniel was still asleep when I slipped out of bed, showered quietly and dressed. I didn't slam drawers or stomp around. I didn't want him to wake yet. I needed time alone. In the kitchen, the morning light streamed through the blinds, casting soft golden slats across the floor. I poured myself coffee and sat silently, staring at the folder with the documents still sitting on the table. I didn't have to open it again. I remembered every word. When Daniel finally walked out, rubbing sleep from his eyes, he didn't look at me. He went straight to the fridge, grabbed juice, and leaned on the counter. "You left the light on in the hallway," he said. "That's what bothers you this morning?" I asked without looking up. He stiffened but didn't answer. "I'm sorry about last night," he said after a pause, rubbing the back of his neck. "Mom can be overwhelming, she means well." I took a slow sip of coffee. "That's not the issue," I said. "Your mother can mean whatever she wants. That doesn't give her rights to my home." He exhaled, annoyed. "Do we have to start this again? It's not just your home, we're married." And, I raised one eyebrow, "Your mother seems more invested in this marriage than you are." That's not true, he snapped. She's trying to help us. No, I corrected, she's trying to control us. He slammed the juice bottle down harder than necessary. You always think the worst of her, he muttered. You never try to understand her intentions. Her intentions, I said, were to take my home, and you helped her. He looked away. I didn't help her, he said quietly. I just agreed to listen. You gave her a key, I reminded him. You let her enter my apartment without telling me. You let her rearrange my home. You sat next to her while she pushed legal documents that would remove me from ownership. I set my cup down. If that's not helping, what is? He swallowed, jaw tight. We're not enemies, he said, voice small. You don't have to treat me like one. Then stop behaving like one. His eyes flashed with hurt pride. I'm going to be late for work, he muttered, grabbing his bag and heading for the door. Daniel, I called. He stopped but didn't turn. The papers, I said. I want them gone before I get home tonight. He hesitated. I'll think about it. That wasn't a request. He left without another word. The moment the door clicked shut, the apartment exhaled with me. I sat still for a long minute. Then I stood, picked up the documents, slipped them into my bag and left the apartment myself. Not for work. For the lawyer. The law office was quiet, clinical, softly lit. The receptionist gave me a polite smile and directed me to a woman in a navy blazer with sharp eyes and a calm face. She looked like someone who had seen every trick, every manipulation, every accidental property transfer attempt in the book. I liked her immediately. My name is Elena, she said as we shook hands. How can I help you today? I took the stack of documents from my bag, placed them on her desk and said, My husband and his mother are trying to take my apartment. Her expression didn't even flicker. Let's begin, she said. For the next 30 minutes she flipped through the documents, reading carefully, tapping notes into her computer. She didn't interrupt me. She didn't rush. She didn't ask irrelevant questions. When she finally stopped, she looked at me with an expression I hadn't seen in a long time, professional anger. This, she said slowly, is a deeply calculated attempt to transfer your property without proper consent. I thought so. They didn't draft these themselves, she continued. This format is too clean, they hired someone, and not a cheap lawyer. My mother-in-law has connections, I said, and confidence. Dangerous combination, Elena muttered. I waited. After another few seconds, she closed the file firmly and sat back. Good news, she said. They cannot legally take your apartment, not with this paperwork, not with any paperwork unless you sign willingly, which you didn't. I felt my lungs unclench. Then she added, Bad news, they are going to try again. I know. She folded her hands. You need to protect yourself in 3 ways. First, secure your documents. Keep them off-site, preferably with your work or bank. They already are, I said. Good. Second, change the locks. I did 2 months ago, I said, after his mother started visiting without permission. Did you give your husband a key? Yes. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Then he gave her a duplicate. I didn't react, but she knew she was right. Third, she continued, you need to document everything. Conversations, visits, behavior, attempts to pressure you. If this escalates, and it will, you'll need proof. I nodded. I started recording things, I admitted quietly. She nodded in approval. You're smarter than your husband thinks you are. I smiled faintly. I know. She leaned forward. And one more thing, she said. Get ready, they'll try emotional manipulation next. Apologies, guilt trips, we're family. Just think it over, they will turn sweet before they turn cruel again. The words hit me harder than expected. Because that was exactly Gloria's pattern. And your husband, she added, he will choose her. I remained silent. I don't tell clients what to do with their marriages, Elena said gently, but protect your property. Some men don't realize the value of what they're destroying until it's already gone. Something in my chest tightened. Not heartbreak. Not sorrow. Recognition. I appreciate the honesty, I said. She nodded. I gathered the documents, placed them back in my bag, thanked her and left the office. The sky outside was grey, the kind of grey that came before a storm, not wild but steady, creeping, inevitable. People hurried by, bundled in coats, rushing to work, to errands, to lives that didn't resemble mine. I stood still on the sidewalk for a moment and closed my eyes. I wasn't afraid. I wasn't overwhelmed. I wasn't confused. I was clear. Crystal clear. When I returned home that evening, Daniel was already there. He sat at the dining table, the documents spread out again, his fingers tangled in his hair. He looked up when I walked in. "Where were you?" he asked immediately. "At my lawyer," I said calmly, hanging up my coat. His eyes widened. "You're your lawyer?" "Yes," I said, walking to the kitchen to pour water, "to understand exactly what you and your mother were trying to do." His face tightened. "It's not like that," he said quickly. "You're twisting things." "Am I?" I asked. "Then tell me, what did you think was going to happen after I signed? Be specific." He couldn't answer. After a long, strained silence, he said softly, "Mom said it was the right thing." "And you?" I asked. "What did you think?" His jaw worked silently. Finally, he whispered, "I thought it would make her happy." "And what about making me happy?" I asked. He didn't respond. He didn't need to. His silence told me everything. And that was the night I realized something important. I wasn't fighting Gloria. I was fighting a mother and son with the same mind, the same entitlement, the same belief that my life existed to serve theirs. They thought they knew me. They thought they could control me. They thought they could push me. But they had no idea. Pressure doesn't break me. It sharpens me. And I wasn't done sharpening. Not even close. Daniel didn't sleep in the bed that night. He said he was too stressed, that he needed space, that everything was happening too fast. He took a pillow and blanket and went to the living room without another word. I didn't stop him. I didn't follow him. I didn't soothe his ego or ask him to come back. Let him feel alone for once. Let him feel the weight of his decisions. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling again, but this time the silence wasn't heavy. It was steady, focused. My thoughts weren't spiraling, they were aligning. Piece by piece. His mother. The key. The documents. His silence. His hesitation. His resentment over the apartment. His need for validation from her. His need to make me smaller, to make himself bigger. The dots connected themselves. I didn't sleep, but I didn't feel tired either. I felt awake, fully, painfully awake. By morning, the apartment was quiet again. Daniel was gone when I stepped out of the bedroom. The blanket was folded neatly, the pillow placed back on the couch. He was trying to look responsible, trying to look like the victim. He had left a note on the table. "At work, we need to talk tonight. D." I stared at the sloppy handwriting for a moment, then folded the note and put it in the trash. We would talk tonight. But it wouldn't be the conversation he expected. I made myself tea and sat by the window, watching the sun rise. My phone buzzed once. I didn't need to look to know who it was. Glorious. I let it ring. Twice. 3 times. She finally sent a message instead. "We need to meet today, alone." Of course she wanted to meet alone. She had realized pressure didn't work on me, so she wanted manipulation, sweetness, guilt, emotional traps. I didn't reply. I went to work, but the day passed like a silent movie. Nurses came and went, patients needed things, charts piled up on my desk. But a part of me floated above it all, detached, focused on something else entirely. When my shift ended, the sun had already dipped behind the buildings. The streetlights flickered on in the hospital parking lot as I walked to my car. That's when I saw her, glorious, standing beside my car, arms crossed, face stiff with impatience. She approached me the moment I stepped closer. "You ignored my messages," she said sharply. I did, I replied. We need to talk. No, I said, you need to talk, I have nothing to say. She blinked, thrown off by my tone. You're being dramatic. I'm being direct. She sighed as though I were a stubborn child. Get in the car, she ordered. We'll talk in private. I didn't move. I didn't unlock the door. I'm not going anywhere with you, I said. Her lips pressed together, thinning to a fine line. Fine, she said, stepping closer. We'll talk here. I didn't answer, I simply stood there waiting. She lowered her voice, glancing around as if afraid someone might hear. You're making a mistake, she said. A big one. You're ruining everything your husband and I have tried to build. What exactly are you building? I asked dryly. A future where I have no home, no autonomy. She flinched at my tone. You're twisting my intentions. No, I said, I'm reading them accurately. Her mask slipped for a second, annoyance slipping into her eyes. I'm trying to protect this family, she snapped. By stealing their daughter-in-law's home, I asked. Interesting form of protection. It wouldn't be stealing, she hissed, not if you signed willingly. But I didn't sign. She inhaled sharply. You're so young, she muttered. So naive, you have no sense of security, you think your job will sustain you forever, you think your health will never fail. When you fall, when you can't work anymore, guess who will take care of you? Me and Daniel. A soft laugh escaped me. Quiet. Cold. You can't take care of yourselves, I said, let alone me. The insult landed harder than I expected. Gloria's face flushed, her eyes flashing. You're cruel, she whispered. Ungrateful, proud. That apartment made you arrogant. You think owning it gives you power over my son. I don't need power over him, I said. He gave that away willingly. Her chest rose sharply. I won't let you destroy my son's chance to have something real, she said. This apartment is the foundation of our family's future. Our family, I repeated. Which part includes me? She didn't respond. Instead, she reached into her purse, pulled out a second set of documents, folded neatly. She held them out. I brought revised paperwork, she said. This time it's cleaner, simpler, you'll keep 20% of the ownership title. I'll take 80%, you'll still live there with Daniel. Everything will be stable. 20%, I whispered, of my own home. Yes, she said quickly, consider it a compromise. For whom? I asked. For all of us, she said. I'm offering you peace. I stared at the papers in her hand. Not for the reason she thought. Not because I was tempted. Because I was done. Completely done. I'm not signing anything, I said. She stepped closer, towering in front of me, lifting her chin in authority she had never earned. If you don't sign, she said slowly, Daniel will file for marital claims. He'll take half, and then we won't have to negotiate with you at all. I went very still. There it was. The real threat. The real strategy. The real plans. She waited for me to panic. Waited for me to flinch. Waited for me to collapse the way she'd watched other women collapse. I didn't. Instead, I took a slow breath, stepped forward until our faces were inches apart and said, You made a mistake. Gloria blinked. What mistake? You warned me, I said softly. You told me what you're planning, and now I'm prepared. She swallowed. You can't stop us, she whispered. A faint smile touched my lips. Watch me. Her eyes flickered with something I hadn't seen before. Fear. Not because of my words, but because of my tone. She had expected anger. Tears. Begging. Panic. But calm scared her more. Calm meant planning. Calm meant control. Calm meant I was already ahead of her. I unlocked my car and got inside, closing the door gently. I didn't slam it, I didn't speed off, I simply pulled away. In the rearview mirror, I saw Gloria still standing there. Still holding the papers. Still stunned. Still realizing she no longer had the advantage. I drove home with the windows cracked open, the cold air brushing my face. The city lights passed in a blur as I replayed every word of that conversation in my head. When I reached my apartment building and climbed the stairs, my footsteps echoed with a certainty I hadn't felt in days. My hands didn't shake when I opened the door. My heartbeat was steady. Daniel sat on the couch, waiting. He looked up immediately. "Mom told me she saw you," he said. "She said you were rude." "I was honest," I corrected. He stared at me for a long moment, then stood. "We need to stop fighting," he said quietly. "We're supposed to be partners." "Partners don't make plans behind each other's backs," I replied. He opened his mouth, then closed it. "You're changing," he whispered. "You're colder." "No," I said, "I'm finally awake." His eyes narrowed slightly. "So what happens now?" he asked. I stepped toward him, calm, steady. "What happens now," I said softly, "is that you stop pretending you didn't know exactly what your mother was trying to do." He looked away. Silence stretched between us like a tight wire. "You think this marriage is ending," he finally said, "but it's not unless I say so." I smiled faintly. "No," I said, "it's not ending yet." He looked confused. I walked past him toward the bedroom. "But when it ends," I said, pausing in the doorway, "it will be on my terms, not yours, not hers." I closed the bedroom door slowly. Not angrily. Not dramatically. Just with finality. Daniel stood alone in the living room, realizing he had already lost control. And that was only the beginning. I didn't expect to sleep that night, but strangely I did. Not deeply, not peacefully. But enough. When I woke up the next morning, there was an unusual silence in the apartment, a thick, unnatural kind of quiet. I walked out of the bedroom slowly, expecting Daniel to be on the couch or in the kitchen. He was. Instead, there was a cup of cold coffee on the table, half finished. His jacket was missing from the hook. His shoes were gone from the doorway. He had left early. Good. It gave me more time to think. I made tea, sat at the window, and watched people rushing down the street, heading to work, unaware of the war happening in one small apartment on the 5th floor. I replayed last night's conversation, Daniel's hesitation, the flicker of guilt in his eyes, the defensive tone in his voice. He was afraid, not of losing me, not of losing our marriage. Afraid of disappointing his mother. That realization settled like a stone in my chest. This wasn't a marriage. It was a chain. One he wanted me to wear as tightly as he wore his own. But I was done being shackled. At 10 in the morning, the doorbell rang. For a moment I just sat still, staring at the door. I didn't move immediately. I wanted the person on the other side to wait, to feel unwelcome. I stood only when the second ring came. When I opened the door, there she was. Glorious. Again. She wasn't smiling today. Her face was tight, her lipstick too bright against the tension in her expression. She held a handbag clutched to her side like a shield. "We need to talk," she said. "No," I said, "you need to talk, and you can talk right here." She inhaled sharply. "Let me inside," she demanded. I crossed my arms. "No." She blinked, stunned by the simplicity of my refusal. "Daniel's not home," she said. "I know he is, he told me he left early." "Good," I replied. "This conversation doesn't need him." Her throat bobbed once. "Fine," she said, lowering her voice. "I'll speak quickly." She straightened her shoulders. "You need to understand what's coming," she said. "Daniel is hurt deeply. You've been disrespectful, unstable, emotional. You're driving him away." I stared at her, unblinking. She continued. "He's talking about separation, and you know what happens during separation? Assets get divided. A judge evaluates contribution. Daniel has lived here for years, that counts. He can take half of this apartment if he wants." She paused, waiting for my fear. None came. So she leaned closer, voice colder. "If you don't behave, if you continue this attitude, he will file." "And what exactly do you want me to do?" I asked softly. "Cooperate," she said. "Sign the new papers, accept the 80-20 split. Daniel will stay with you, you'll keep stability, and the family will remain intact. I raised an eyebrow. So he stays here as long as I give up my home. Exactly. Her confidence was so strong, so blindingly sincere, she didn't even realize how unbelievable she sounded. I stepped forward. You really think I'm that desperate? I asked. I think, she said slowly, that you're smart enough to know you'll lose if you fight us. I stared at her for a long moment. Then, for the first time, I smiled. Not politely. Not kindly. Not nervously. Cold, sharp, controlled. You made a mistake, I whispered. Her eyes narrowed. Again with that, what mistake this time? I took a slow breath. You assumed I didn't know the law, I said. You assumed I was afraid. You assumed I didn't have evidence. Her face shifted slightly. What evidence? Of everything, I said. You entering my home without permission, you threatening me, you presenting fraudulent documents, you attempting to coerce a transfer of ownership, you pressuring your son to file false claims. Her skin went pale. You're lying, she whispered. I lifted my phone. The same phone I used when she confronted me at the hospital parking lot. I record everything now, I said. Her hand twitched. You wouldn't dare. Oh, I already did. She swallowed. You think the police will take your side? She asked. They already did, I replied softly. Remember when you lost access to your duplicate key, when the officers told you to leave, when they confirmed I'm the only legal owner? Her lips tightened. That was different. No, I said, this is exactly the same. She stepped back shaky. You're playing a dangerous game, she whispered. No, I said calmly, I'm ending one. She stared at me for a long moment, then finally turned and walked down the hallway, her heels clicking unevenly against the floor. Her confidence was gone. Her certainty was shaken. Her plan was collapsing. I closed the door, locked the deadbolts, and leaned against it. For the first time since all this began, I felt something powerful. Control. Not revenge. Not rage. Not fear. Control. The kind Gloria spent her life forcing onto others. The kind Daniel thought he deserved by default. The kind they believed I would never claim. I went to work that day with a clearer head than I'd had in months. I moved through the hospital halls with a calm confidence that felt unfamiliar but right, like it had always belonged to me, but I had just remembered where I put it. When I got home that evening, Daniel was already waiting. He stood in the hallway, arms folded, jaw tight, eyes burning with something between anger and desperation. We need to talk, he said. I walked past him. No, I said, you need to listen. He followed me into the living room. What's going on with you? He demanded. Mom said. Your mother, I interrupted, should stop speaking for you. He froze. You're acting like some stranger, he said. I don't know this version of you. Good, I said softly, because now you'll have to meet me properly. He shifted uncomfortably. I don't want this marriage to fall apart, he murmured, but you're pushing me away, you're putting us in an impossible situation. I turned to face him fully. Daniel, I said quietly, this marriage started falling apart the moment you thought I'd give up my home to please your mother. He looked startled, as if he hadn't truly processed that before. We need a reset, he said suddenly. A fresh start, you stop fighting my mom and she'll back off, we'll be fine again. A hollow laugh escaped me. You still don't understand, I whispered. This isn't about your mother, it's about you. He blinked. What do you mean? You made a choice, I said calmly. You just didn't realize it at the time. He swallowed. What choice? You chose her, I said, every time over me, over our marriage, over our future. Silence. Thick, heavy, absolute. Daniel's face twitched with something, regret maybe, or realization, or simply the discomfort of hearing the truth spoken aloud. So what now? He asked, voice cracking slightly. I stepped forward. What happens now, I said quietly, depends on you. He frowned. I don't understand. You will, I said, soon. He stared at me, confused, unsettled. I walked past him, heading to the bedroom. He didn't follow this time. He stayed in the hallway, alone. Exactly where he had put himself. Exactly where he would stay. Because the door he didn't see closing. It had already closed. And soon he'd hear the lock click into place. Daniel didn't speak to me the next morning. He left before sunrise, quietly, without a sound, the way someone leaves a room they feel unwanted in. I heard the soft click of the door, then the heavy silence that followed. I didn't go after him. Not because I wanted distance. Because distance was finally revealing the truth. When the apartment door closed, I sat on the edge of the bed, letting the silence settle. It wasn't peaceful, just honest, the kind of silence that tells you everything you've been trying not to see. This marriage was already over. I was just waiting for him to realize it too. I showered, dressed, and made tea. The morning light spilled across the kitchen tiles, warm and gentle, so opposite from the Cold War unfolding in my home. By the time I left for work, I had already decided what needed to happen. The final shift in this battle wasn't going to be loud. It was going to be quiet. Calculated. Precise. At the hospital, I worked my shift with a strange kind of clarity. My colleagues noticed. You look different today, Sarah said during lunch break. Lighter. I made a decision, I said. She didn't ask what. She didn't need to. She had seen enough of my life unravel over the last few months to know when something irreversible had happened inside me. The shift passed quickly, and when I stepped outside into the crisp evening air, my phone buzzed once. A message from Daniel. We're talking tonight. No running, no yelling, no games. Games. The word made me smile humorlessly. He thought I was the one playing. I didn't reply. I drove home slowly, letting the tension build inside me in a controlled, deliberate way. Not fear, not nerves, just preparation. When I reached the building, the hallway lights flickered again, the same old faulty wiring no one bothered to fix. I climbed the stairs, unlocked the door, and stepped inside. Daniel was sitting at the dining table. He wasn't angry this time, he wasn't yelling, he wasn't defensive. He looked tired, drained, confused, like someone who finally realized he wasn't winning the game he thought he was playing. We need to talk, he said quietly. I know, I replied, placing my bag down. He swallowed hard. Mom said you threatened her. No, I said calmly, I told her the truth. That you recorded her. Yes. He rubbed his face, stressed. You can't do that, she's my mother. I can do a lot of things, I said, especially when someone tries to take my home. He stared at me, shaking his head slightly. You've changed, he murmured. You're colder, harder, you don't even look at me the same. That's because I don't see you the same, I said softly. He flinched. Why, he whispered, what did I do that was so unforgivable? I tilted my head. Do you really want the list? He closed his eyes. I just want us to fix this, he said. We're supposed to be partners, married people talk, they compromise, they work things out. You didn't want to work things out, I said. You wanted me to surrender. That's not. You wanted me to give up my home, I said, cutting him off. You wanted me to sign it over to your mother. You wanted me to pretend everything was fine while she took more and more control. He shook his head. Mom was trying to build something stable for the family. No, I said, she was trying to build control, and you helped her. His eyes filled with something, shame perhaps or fear. I didn't understand how serious it was, he whispered. You should have explained it better. I stared at him. Explained it better. As if I was the one who had failed. As if his betrayal needed better communication from me. What do you want from me? I asked. He straightened. A second chance. I didn't laugh. I didn't cry. I didn't react at all. Instead, I walked to the couch, sat down, and folded my hands in my lap. Sit, I said. He blinked. Daniel, sit. He obeyed, slowly, uncertainly, sitting across from me like a student waiting for a lecture. What I'm about to say, I began, is not an argument, not a threat, not a negotiation. I lifted my eyes to his. It's a choice. His breath caught. A choice, he repeated, voice small. Yes, I said, for you. He swallowed. Okay, he whispered, tell me. I leaned forward slightly. You have two options, I said, and I need your answer tonight. His fingers tightened around each other. Option 1, I continued. You cut your mother out of our marriage completely. No decisions, no influence, no involvement. She doesn't come here without my permission, she doesn't speak for you, and she doesn't interfere in our life. His eyes widened. That's extreme. It's necessary, I said. If you choose this, we try again, but your mother is no longer part of the equation. He shook his head, overwhelmed. And option 2, he asked softly. I exhaled slowly. We divorce. His face went still. He stared at me as if he didn't understand the words, as if divorce was a foreign concept, an impossibility, something that only happened to people with real problems, not him, never him. You're serious, he whispered. Yes. His voice cracked. You'd really end our marriage? I held his gaze. You already ended it, I said quietly. I'm just giving it a dignified exit. He leaned back in his chair, breath unsteady, eyes wet. I don't want a divorce, he said. Then choose option 1. He covered his mouth with his hand, shaking his head in disbelief. She's my mother, he whispered. I can't just cut her off. You cut me off, I said, repeatedly. He closed his eyes tightly. You're making this impossible, he whispered. No, I said, I'm making it clear. He didn't look at me. He didn't argue. He didn't shout. He just sat there, trembling slightly, the weight of the choice suffocating him. After a long time, he whispered, I need time. You don't have it, I said firmly. Choose now. He looked up at me, and for the first time I saw it clearly. He wasn't choosing between me and his mother. He was choosing between control and accountability, between comfort and courage, between the woman who built a home and the woman who wanted to take it. He swallowed hard and whispered, I choose. I choose. The words trembled in Daniel's throat, trapped between fear and loyalty. He looked at me as though the weight of his entire life sat on his shoulders. His eyes darted between mine, searching for an escape, a loophole, a hint that I might pull back at the last second. I didn't. I held my ground. I waited. He swallowed again, his Adam's apple bobbing painfully. I choose, he whispered, voice cracking, my mother. The room went silent. A silence so deep it seemed to pull the oxygen from the air. I didn't flinch. I didn't gasp. I didn't cry. I only blinked once slowly. Because the moment he said the words, something inside me finally settled. Not heartbreak. Not shock. Just confirmation. The truth plain and bare. Of course he chose her. He always had. He always would. He was never mine, not truly. He waited for my reaction, his face tight, as if expecting me to scream or break down or plead with him to reconsider. I didn't give him any of that. I simply nodded. Thank you, I said quietly. He looked confused. For what, he whispered. For being honest, finally. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. I mean, it's not like I don't love you, he said, stumbling over the words. She's my mother, she raised me, I can't abandon her. And you expect me to abandon myself, I said. He froze. I expect us to work together, he said desperately. We can find a way, you and Mom can try again. No, I said, that time is over. He looked terrified now, not of losing me, but of losing the version of me who tolerated everything. Please, he whispered, standing slowly. Don't do this, we can fix it. You can compromise a little, she can compromise. She won't, I said. He didn't respond. And neither will I added softly. His chest rose sharply. He took a step toward me. Can't we at least think about it? He asked. We don't have to decide tonight. You already did, I said. His mouth opened and closed helplessly, like someone drowning quietly. This is crazy, he murmured. We're married, you can't just end it like this. I didn't end it, I said. You did when you chose her. He shook his head, gripping the back of a chair as if he needed it to stay standing. This is a phase, he whispered. You're stressed, you're overwhelmed, you'll calm down and then. Daniel, I said gently, I don't want to fix something that was never real. He froze. Never real, he repeated, voice faint. You never wanted a partner, I said. You wanted a bridge between your mother and your adulthood, someone to manage your life while she directed it. That's not true, he said weakly. But it is, I whispered. He looked at me then, really looked, and for the first time I think he saw me not as an extension of his mother's expectations, but as a person standing across from him, a person he was losing. He reached for my hand. I stepped back. He stared at the space between us like it was a cliff. So what now? He whispered. Now was the moment I'd been preparing for. We divorce, I said simply. He dropped into the chair as though his legs had given out. You're serious, he whispered. I am. After everything, he asked, you'll walk away. I'm not walking away, I said. I'm walking back to myself. He buried his face in his hands. I don't want this, he said, voice muffled. You wanted the version of me who stayed quiet, I said. She's gone. The room fell into stillness again. He stayed frozen in that position, breathing unsteadily, and I knew instinctively he wasn't processing loss, he was processing inconvenience. Because he still believed he'd find a way to twist this back in his favor. I didn't give him the chance. I walked to the bedroom, opened the drawer and took out the documents I'd prepared earlier, the ones the lawyer had helped me understand, the ones that protected me. I returned to the living room and placed them on the table in front of him. He lifted his head slowly. What is this? He asked. Proof of ownership, I said. Proof of income, proof the apartment was bought before our marriage, proof you contributed nothing financially. His face turned white. You gathered all this, he whispered. Yes. His lips trembled. You planned this. I prepared, I corrected. There's a difference. He stood abruptly, panic taking over. You can't do this, you can't just erase everything. I'm not erasing it, I said, I'm closing it. He laughed, a broken, bitter sound. And where do you expect me to go? He demanded. I have nowhere else, my mother's place is too small, I can't just. You can go wherever you choose, I said, as long as it's not here. He stared at me like I'd stabbed him. You're heartless, he whispered. No, I said, I'm finally protecting myself. He pressed his hand to the table, steadying himself. This is unfair, he said. You have everything, I have nothing. My eyes narrowed. Whose choice was that? He didn't answer. Because we both knew the truth. He'd chosen the wrong side. That night he slept on the couch again. But it wasn't silence this time. It was distance. Heavy, sharp, inevitable. The kind that only leads in one direction. Toward an ending he thought he could avoid. Toward a truth he could no longer deny. Toward consequences he never believed would come. I lay in bed, staring into the darkness, not anxious, not afraid. Just waiting. Waiting for the moment he would try one last time to grab control. Because he wasn't done yet. He didn't know how to accept defeat. And the next move he made would reveal everything. The next morning I woke up to noise. Not quiet footsteps. Not a door closing softly. Not the kettle boiling. Real noise. Movement. Cabinets opening. Drawers sliding. Something heavy being dragged. For a moment I stayed still, listening. Then I got up, walked out of the bedroom and stood in the hallway. Daniel was in the living room, packing anxiously, stuffing clothes into a duffel bag with frantic, jerky movements, shirts thrown in without folding, shoes tossed on top, a jacket jammed into the side pocket. He looked up when he heard me. His eyes were red, his face pale, his hands shaking. "You're really doing this," he said quietly. "You're really going through with it." "Yes," I said. He let out a breath, half disbelief, half anger. "And where am I supposed to go?" he demanded. "To whoever you chose," I replied. His jaw tightened. "That's not fair." "Fair," I repeated. "You want fair, you tried to take my home." "That wasn't me," he shot back. "That was Mom." "You gave her the key," I said. "You agreed to her plan, you stood beside her, don't rewrite the story now." He froze. "You're twisting everything," he whispered. "I'm repeating what happened," I said calmly. He pressed his palms together, desperate. "What if I try again?" he asked. "What if I try harder? What if I fix things? What if I set boundaries with her? What if I—" "You already chose," I said. "I'm just honoring your choice." He stared at me, trembling. "Please," he said, "please don't do this." "You did this," I said. His breath caught. "You were supposed to be with me," he whispered. "No," I said softly. "I was supposed to be with someone who valued me." He looked away quickly, hiding the emotion in his eyes. "It's not that simple." "It is." Silence. Then, in a small voice, "Will you hate me forever?" I shook my head. "No," I said. "Hating you gives you space in my mind. I'm reclaiming that." He swallowed hard. "You sound like someone I don't know." "That's because you only knew the woman who loved you," I said, "not the woman who chooses herself." Something in him broke. He zipped the bag with a shaky hand, slung it over his shoulder and stood there, looking around the apartment one last time, not with nostalgia but with regret. Regret for losing control. Regret for losing convenience. Regret for losing someone who cared. Not regret for losing me. I stepped aside, giving him the doorway. He hesitated. "Will you ever forgive me?" he whispered. "You didn't ask for forgiveness," I said. "You asked for access, that's not the same." He blinked rapidly. I loved you," he said. "You loved having me," I corrected. He stepped into the hallway. Paused. Turned back one last time. "I didn't think you'd actually leave me," he whispered. "I didn't leave you," I said. "You let me go." He lowered his head. Then he walked away. The echo of his footsteps faded down the stairs. And I closed the door. Not softly. Not harshly. Just finally. The apartment felt different once he was gone. Larger. Quieter. Mine. Truly mine. I walked through each room slowly, touching the furniture he never valued, the walls he wanted to hand over, the windows his mother wiped as if marking territory. All of it, every inch, every surface, every detail, belonged to me again. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt safe. I brewed tea, sat by the window, and let the late afternoon light settle on my face. Outside, the neighborhood buzzed with life, children playing, cars passing, someone laughing on the phone. The world moved on. And I did too. My phone buzzed once. A single message from an unknown number. But I didn't need to open it to know it was her. Glorious. I deleted it without reading. Another buzz. A call this time. I declined it. And blocked the number. This chapter of my life wasn't just ending. It was closed. Locked. Sealed. With no key given to anyone but me. 2 weeks later, I filed the divorce papers officially. Daniel didn't contest. He couldn't. He had nothing to stand on. No contribution. No documents. No leverage. Just guilt. And guilt wasn't a legal claim. The judge approved my request quickly. Just like that, my marriage ended. No dramatic courtroom scene. No shouting. No last-minute begging. Just signatures, papers, silence, and freedom. Months passed. My life returned to calm in a way I didn't realize I needed. I went to work, came home to my peaceful apartment, cooked dinner, watched movies, met friends, slept deeply for the first time in years. The shadows that once lingered in the corners of my home disappeared. One evening I stood at the window again, tea in hand, watching the city glow under the streetlights. And for the first time since everything happened, I smiled. A real smile. Not because I had won. Not because they had lost. But because I had chosen myself. Completely. Fully. Without apology. And sometimes the greatest revenge is simply living a life they can no longer touch.